It's been a pretty wild year for the New York Rangers. And before we get into the Rangers-Flyers recap, Artemi Panarin has taken a leave of absence. There was a report that came out in Russia that Artemi Panarin in 2011 physically assaulted, beat up an 18-year-old girl. And this comes in response to Artemi Panarin has been very vocal. He's very anti-Putin and has supported Putin's opposition leader. I think that Panarin should be applauded for this. It's very brave. Some I consider not wise. Very brave. And he's speaking his mind. And when he had done this, I'd seen on social media a few weeks ago that, he had shown support against Putin. And I did think, well, that could have repercussions. And unfortunately it has. So Andrei Nazarov, who was a former tough guy in the NHL, just a kind of a goon fighter, was his coach back then. And mind you, Nazarov is very pro-Putin, is the one that is coming out with these allegations. And so far, everyone has defended Panarin, and it seems like this is a very politically driven accusation from Nazarov. So Panarin has family in Russia, and so we will see what unfolds here. But Panarin will not be with the team. Could it be a few days? Could it be a few weeks? Could it be more than that? We'll see. But this wild Ranger season continues. And, I wish, the bread man the best. And I think that, hopefully, I think the Rangers sent out a very strong statement as well as the NHL. And of course you're going to do that, but I think that the team, the league feels very strongly that this will be put to rest soon. And I don't think they'd put their neck out for him if they didn't think that these were just not true. And he's been beloved in Chicago, Columbus, the Rangers. I mean, obviously things can happen in life, and just because he's one way on the ice doesn't mean, things can be different off the ice. But I think even if you weren't a Ranger fan, it seems as if this is nothing valid to this. So he just needed some time to clear his head and get everything in order. And so hopefully we'll see Artemi soon. But in terms of on the ice, it's a huge loss for this team. And this is after, let's sort of go through the list. Tony DeAngelo, that whole situation where going into the year, this is a guy who was top 5 in defensive scoring last season. I mean, he was a threat on the power play, a threat even strength offensively. And, this was someone that was going to be dependent on as a, night in, night out guy that was going to play for this team. He just signed a 2-year extension out of the mix. Then you're talking about a couple of long-term injuries to Filip Heatl, who early on was showing major signs of, progression and at a very important position for this team. And then Jacob Trouba as well, who's an important defender. So those are the long-term injuries. And, Heatl, I think, could be back in the somewhat near future, hopefully. And then also, Kakko was added to the COVID list, and it doesn't seem like he'll be back soon. He's missed a couple of games. And then tonight, before the game starts, K'Andre Miller is also placed in the COVID list. So we're talking about very important players across the board. Those are 6 players that are regulars on this team. And when we talk about this game tonight, it's not an excuse. This was a winnable game. And of course, it would have helped, Panarin, of course. And then, Miller obviously is a big injury, just in terms of what you have going on defensively. And that's really burned him tonight. So Rangers are facing a Flyers team who they played last week. Rangers won that game in a shootout. If you remember, I wasn't really all that impressed by that win. The Flyers were without a lot of guys, and the Rangers were coming off that really bad Devils loss. But they got the win, and then Philly went to Lake Tahoe and got pretty much steamrolled by Boston. Not too unsurprising when you consider Boston's lineup and what Philly had going on. So tonight, Claude Giroux is back. And all five other, all the other players on the COVID list for Philadelphia were still out. But Giroux made an even bigger impact than I thought he would. As well, Brian Elliott was in net for the Flyers, not Carter Hart. And Elliott has had a pretty decent season, and Hart's numbers aren't great, but still, this, as rough as the lineup was for the Rangers, and again, Miller was kind of the icing on the cake. This, we found out about this like an hour or two before the game. But Giroux makes a huge impact. So, to start the game, Rangers were kind of sleepwalking. And I'd say they definitely played hard this game, but the first 5 minutes or so were sloppy and tons of chances for Philly. Eventually, and this would be a theme of the night, Rangers take a penalty. And this would be the first of too many men on the ice penalties. And Philly would score. Gustafsson, with assists from Gostisbehere and Giroux. So that makes it 1-0. But the Rangers would tie it on the power play. And the power play, I must say, the first unit, without Panarin, looked good tonight. Kreider would score his first of the night. And it was on a shot by Zibanejad. Adam Fox would also get an assist. It was just a face-off win by Strome, very quick, and Kreider buries the rebound. So that ties it up at 1. And they would not score on a power play, Philadelphia. Let me correct myself. That first goal, that was 17 seconds after the power play had expired. So they'd actually killed that one off. But not too far after it was over. Then Johnny Brodzinski is in the lineup tonight, and that just goes to show you how bad the depth has become. He takes a penalty. He had also played one other game earlier in the season and took a penalty in that game as well. Brodzinski was not good tonight at all. Hopefully they can use someone else next game. And I think that they'd be able to do so. They play Friday night. I like to think they wouldn't go back to Brodzinski. I'm not sure who they would choose, if it would be Morgan Barron or if it would be someone more of a veteran type like Brodzinski. Maybe they give Tim Gettinger a look, but definitely Brodzinski did not have a good game, takes a penalty, and Rangers had some opportunities shorthanded, but then Brendan Smith had a really bad clear that went into the Flyer bench. So what could have just been a clear, time goes off the clock. Instead, it's a face-off in the Rangers zone. Flyers would win the face-off and eventually score. It came back to bite. And this time it would be Gostisbehere from Gustafsson and Giroux. So the same crew on both goals getting the points. So that's 2 assists for Giroux at this point. So it's 2-1. And that would be the score after 1. Then early second period, Brendan Smith takes a penalty. Brodzinski had messed up. He couldn't clear Shesterkin was very aggressive in terms of trying to clear the puck tonight. Some good, some bad. And this would lead to a power play, and Philadelphia would score. Van Riemsdyk, who's been great this year, makes it 3-1. But the Rangers would get a power play. Before that, the Rangers would take 2 penalties. They would actually kill them both off. Julien Gauthier took one of the penalties, and then Pavel Buchnevich had to delay a game. The Rangers would take another delay game. And the Rangers, thanks to Shesterkin, it kept the game close at 3-1. So Shesterkin, even though he was giving up goals to this point, was making tons of huge saves. The Rangers' structure tonight was not there. Flyers had a lot of good opportunities. The Rangers would get a power play and score again. Kreider, again. Zibanejad had another assist, and Strome with the other assist on this one. Make it 3-2. And the Rangers had a lot of chances to tie this game up. Tons. But Philly would score to make it 4-2. Kevin Hayes would score. And this was a big one. And I think it's a goal that Shesterkin would have liked to have had back. That goal and maybe the first one, still a very good game overall for Igor. Made tons of huge saves to really keep this close. Philly could have scored 6 or 7. And this makes it 4-2. And the Rangers, in the midst of this, had killed off another penalty. Ryan Lindgren took a delay of game penalty. He had a rough night, and he actually had the least ice time amongst the 6 defensemen, which was surprising. I didn't really notice that until after the game, because he's part of the top pair with Adam Fox. And Fox was the one defenseman who, again, was tremendous. Absolutely fantastic. But the defense tonight was really rough. Basically, everyone else. Smith, a lot of ups and downs. Like I said before, with the bad clear, the penalty, he had some good offensive moments, but he was kind of all over the place. Jack Johnson, not great. Not great. I guess it could have been worse. My expectations for him aren't really too high. And even worse than them was Libor Hayek and Anthony Bitetto. So both pairs weren't great, but I mean, Hayek had a really rough night, and he was kind of responsible for screening Shesterkin on the first goal, and then Bitetto late in the third, would take a penalty where Giroux just stripped it from him and he had to hook him. Otherwise, he was going to go and totally clean on a breakaway. So really bad. Whereas I felt like in the Washington game and in general, the defense, even though they're not names, they had been doing a good job tonight. Not great. So it's 4-2 going into the third, and the Rangers, about 5 to 6 minutes into the period, would score, and it'd be Chris Kreider getting a hat trick. So Kreider, his 8th goal of the season. This is what he does. He scores goals in bunches. He's very streaky, and he's definitely getting a lot of goals right in front of the net. And that's what he's got to do. He's a net front guy, and he's scoring the dirty goals. So it makes it 4-3. Colin Blackwell actually gets an assist on that goal. And Blackwell was all over the ice. Unfortunately, he had some opportunities and wasn't able to bury them, but a pretty solid game from Blackwell, all's considered. So 4-3, and the Rangers would have a lot of chances. And I guess one that really comes to mind would be Zibanejad shorthanded on that Bitetto penalty. Zibanejad goes in all on a breakaway, and he's denied. And he loves the backhand move, which was the goal. He scored on a backhand on the 5th goal of the season. Not the 5th goal of the season, the 5th goal last year in the game against Washington, the amazing game. It was a backhand roof job, but he's been trying that move a lot and it hasn't really been working. So that would have been big for him, and I guess you can't say you're surprised. It was a step in the right direction for him tonight. I thought he played well, but not great. And, Lafreniere on that line with Zibanejad was pretty quiet, didn't do a whole lot. And a guy who really had a poor night, and I guess now we'll kind of get more into sort of the last couple minutes of the game. So when the Rangers pull their goalie, they rarely, if ever, it feels like, for the most part, in the last few years, especially this year, get really any opportunities. On the flip side, when they're the ones defending the lead, the other team a lot of the times will tie it up, or if not, come really close to. So there's another example where they got nothing going at all. And Buchnevich, he needs to shoot the puck more. It was not a good night for Pavel Buchnevich, one of his worst games of the season. And, maybe that's part of the reason why things didn't work out for Lafreniere on that line. But I kind of figured that the Strome line with Kreider and Blackwell would do a little bit better than the Zibanejad line. And again, Mika did some good things, I guess more so on the power play. But so they wouldn't tie it up. And also Brendan Lemieux would be on late. I don't know why he was on the ice. They weren't able to get a stoppage. I'm sure if there had been some sort of whistle, a save or an offside, Lemieux wouldn't have been on there. But Lemieux really, I think at this point, at best, he's a 4th liner. When they got him from Winnipeg, I think there was hope that he could be like maybe a 2nd line guy who could be kind of a physical presence who can score goals and get points. It doesn't seem like that's really going to be a thing for him. I think expectations have probably already been tempered, and you can just tell by the distribution of minutes. Howden, Lemieux, and Gauthier did not play much at all, just like they didn't play too much last game either. So Howden has really been demoted behind Kevin Rooney. And with Brodzinski playing mostly with DiGiuseppe and Rooney, I kind of felt bad for them. Whereas Blackwell was playing with them last game, Brodzinski was just not a good mix. But like I said, even with that being said, that Howden line got less time. And Brett Howden at this point, again, I think, his defensive play is mostly sound, and there's some credit for that, but he has gotten worse over the years, I think, offensively. He showed some flashes as a rookie, but again, this is a guy who one could argue is maybe AHL bound. I mean, at some point, how long is he going to last in the NHL? And so there is a lot of dead weight, and again, like I said, there's a lot of key players out. There is. But I still feel like even with that being said, tonight, they had their chances, weren't able to convert when they really needed it, and the defensive play was not good tonight. This was definitely one of the worst games that I've seen from them. I guess in a while, I mean, the Jersey game definitely stands out, but it's tough. They're really rolling guys out there that either shouldn't be in the lineup, or if they are, should be playing a lot less than they are. So it's a bit of a tough situation. And the Rangers are 6-8-3, and their goal differential is -3. So this is not a bad team, and they're not very clutch. But I think more than that, this is a very strong division, and they're just not at that level to be really in that playoff conversation, especially with the players that are out. You know, you combine. I don't think that they really were anyway, and then you layer it on with all this, and it's tough. So now the Rangers will have a back-to-back against Boston at home, and the Rangers had a back-to-back with Boston recently, and those were good. Those were very physical, good games. The first one the Rangers lost in overtime, and the second one they lost 1-0 in regulation. So we'll see what happens. I think that you'll probably see, if I had to guess, I think it'll be Georgiev versus Halak Friday. I think. The Bruins play the Islanders tomorrow night. I think Rask will go against the Islanders, and Halak, who's given the Rangers fits for years, who had a shutout in the last meeting. I think that's the logical assumption. And I do think Georgiev probably gets the net Friday. And then Sunday it'll be Rask versus Shesterkin. Total guesswork on my part, but I think that's where it goes. Hard to be too optimistic about that, and especially if, let's say, the Islanders beat Boston Thursday. I think it's going to be real tough sledding for the Rangers Friday with Boston coming off a loss. We'll see if that happens. I think Boston will be hungry against the Islanders, knowing that the Islanders beat them twice, but we'll see how the Bruins play coming off the Tahoe rout against Philly. Yeah, with the Rangers, it's just been a very, very crazy season, and who knows what news we'll find out tomorrow. It's just one of those years. So I will talk to you guys again after the second Boston game, and we will recap the back-to-back against the Bruins.